This is the special called meeting for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education. We will begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. If you would all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Father, we come to you today so thankful for the beauty that we have seen all day, for the warm temperatures and the sunshine. Lord, we are grateful for those who have gathered here this evening. Lord, as we conduct business on behalf of our most precious commodity, our kids and our future, Lord, make sure that we do what we're doing with our decisions, and we lead with integrity and with courage and with love and kindness with one another. Lord, as we are leaders in this community, let us show and lead by example as how we treat each other. Lord, again, we thank you for just this community, for the love that this community shows for education, and we thank you for giving us another day. In your name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. So first tonight we will have public comments on agenda items. I believe we have two speakers signed up. First would be Mr. Harvey. Right here, Mr. Harvey. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Emery, Chairman Jones, and distinguished board members, citizens of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. It is indeed a pleasure for me to stand here representing the 14th Street Elementary School alumni as we have discussions about solutions for Astley Academy. And it's my honor to stand here because Astley was named after one of the greatest educators in Forsyth County history. In fact, when the time that J.D. Astley retired, he was one of the longest serving, if not the longest serving, principal of a school in Forsyth County. I talk about Astley for a myriad of reasons. I know they're in the paper now because of the mold problem. But I go all the way back to March of 2017 when I had a meeting with Dudley Watts and Darrell Walker from the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System. They came to one of our meetings at Winston-Salem Prep, and we talked about building a new school in East Winston. And we talked about Astley. And we talked about the problems at Astley, the location of Astley, and how much money it would take to build or construct a new school. And Dudley Watts gave us a ballpark figure, somewhere in the neighborhood around $15 million, to build a new elementary school that would house somewhere in the neighborhood of about 550 kids. And my group was ecstatic about that because we have a spot, the same spot that 14th Street Elementary School once stood in, vacant. I think some of you board members have been there and you've seen that spot. And it is still in a neighborhood that is thriving somewhat. And so we decided that we would encourage you all to look at building a new school. And once again, Darrell Walker told us that the new school was on the agenda for the year 2027. I left my notepad out in the car, but I still have notes from that meeting. And I'm just trying to figure out if the kids from Low Ranch could be fast-tracked to a new building, why can't the kids from Astley be fast-tracked to a new building? A new building that is free from mold and in a new position so that everyone in that community could receive the proper education. I think that's my time.
I defer my 3 minutes to Mr. Harvey.
I thank you. With that in mind, I'd just like to say this. I would like for this board to do the right thing about the kids from Astley. See, it looks as though we're doing 2 different things for 2 different groups. And you all are here to serve all the students of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. Not just the particular kids that live on the west side, some that live on the north side, but you're here for all of our kids. I was scheduled to have a meeting with the superintendent. That meeting never came about. And I'm hoping that we can still do that, because that is a thing that I'd like to see us do. But I'd also like to see us rise above partisan politics and build a school for kids that emphasizes math and science. And I say that because when I was teaching at Simon Green Atkins High School on Old Greensboro Road, we had a wall down near the Togo D. West library. And on that, maybe Mr. Carter's library, I'm sorry. And on that wall was 50 or so doctors. They were all male. They've somehow forgot all about the females that attended Atkins, who went on to become mathematicians and doctors in their own right. But they had about 50 kids, 50 people representing the education that came out of East Winston. Because I believe that all kids can learn when given the proper tools and encouragement. We've got to put our kids in the right positions to learn. When you walk down to Ashley, when you go down to Ashley, I'll never forget that day I was down there. Dr. Emery, you were there. I was stunned when I walked up down there to see all those boarded up houses. And I said, whoa, how can somebody feel good about going to a building like this? I think if you are sincere about your core value, then you would do the right thing. And not just talk about putting a new air conditioning system in, because they tried that at Parkland and it still didn't work. So I suggest that we look at expediting, like Dudley Watts said, fast tracking, building a new school, and putting a school there that those kids in that community can be proud of, because that's an essential for a community. That's like having a church, having a school. Those things are essential for a community to thrive and grow. When you don't have that, you don't have much of a community. Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you and make my plea for J.D. Ashley Elementary School being relocated to 14th and Cameron, its rightful place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. So that concludes our speakers on agenda items this evening. We will move on to our discussion items, and first I will recognize Darrell Walker as we discuss solutions for Ashley Academy.
Good evening, Chairman Jones, Board, Dr. Emery. For you tonight are the discussion items around the solutions for Ashley Academy that have been presented to you for review. You've heard the report from Mr. Service and their firm about with the final report. What we have looked at as a solution that's possible to move forward with some new units in that facility that when that day comes in a future bond or whenever we build a new Ashley Elementary, that we could reuse some of those units on some maybe mobiles or pod units down the road, so that we would not so be able to recoup our investment on that facility. So that's sort of the solution that we brought to you. There's a pretty extensive timeline on this as far as getting things engineered, permitting, ordering equipment, things that need lead time and things like that we probably need to discuss as well. So,
Do we have the presentations, the timelines, and those types of things so that folks in the audience can see what we're seeing?
Yes, do we have the backup materials? Can we put them under a document camera
can
if they're
we-
not
can-
loaded,
because
or
it's-
can we load them,
And sometimes when
please?
we're here talking, it's hard
Yes.
for people to kind of follow that. Not a clue.
Madam Chair, while they're loading that, could I walk through the board asked questions last week, and maybe this will help outline some of this, and we can take it in the way
Okay,
that you
great.
asked the questions. First, the first question was, what is the cost to replace the units, and a timeline for replacement? And in the action portion of your agenda, you have a total request of 1.5 million, which includes multiple aspects of this.
So can I,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dr. Emery, can we just do what we need to do to try to get what we have so they can see it? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
very hard to see that, right? You can't really see that. And we want to be transparent. We're trying to go through this process. So if whatever we need to do, take a recess, do something else. We don't have anything digital we can put up there?
I'll try to log in as me, and then
Okay.
I should be able to get to my stuff.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Are you okay to keep on, or do you want to? Okay.
Go ahead.
So if folks can see, and we'll get this, but we sent you this timeline that would allow us to begin immediately completing design, getting a bid on the units, and having the bids approved so that we could begin work as soon as school is out. After our meeting last Tuesday night, we met with the staff at Astley on Wednesday, and then again, we had a back-to-back. We had staff first, and then we had a parent meeting. The same report that was made here, both in Building and Grounds and to the board and the community at the public board meeting, was made for the entire staff, since the work group were the only group that was in that Building and Grounds meeting. And so it allowed us to get feedback, particularly on the long-term solution. That didn't seem like there was any debate, right? The bigger issue was, what do we do in the short term? And so there was discussion with Will, just as we had asked, around the issue of cleaning. And there were staff that really were reluctant about that because of concerns that if you cleaned, what does that leave stuff in the air? And Will, like when we asked him the question, did a really good job of explaining short term. At that point, there was also the offer of industrial scrubbers to go in the building. So some of the questions were around what happens now? How do we sort of make it until we get to the end of the school year? And so those scrubbers went into the building right away. They're loud, they're industrial, they can't go on during the daytime, but folks can leave their doors open at night. They can run all night and then start the day with that.
And the scrubber, Dr. Emery, does what? It cleans the air?
It cleans the air, so, right. I know that sounds, yeah. It scrubs the air literally. It's not walls or, I mean, it's sophisticated filtration of the air. And I can't speak for what's I don't have feedback since they went in, but the staff were very welcoming of that, liked the idea, and certainly gave us at the meeting last Wednesday the feeling that helped them feel like something was happening in the interim until we had a decision by the board and steps moving forward on this. On the action portion of the agenda, you have two pieces. You have a design for this mechanical change, and then the actual replacement and modification of the units. I did want to say that the other dollars here relate to the second question that was asked, which was around the condition of the roof. And so there is assessment of the roof that will go on here. We also, and I know they're working on documents, but we also sent you a document with links so you could actually look at the actual work order history divided up by indoor air quality work orders, how long the turnaround or response time was, as well as those that were specific to the roof. I know that there's some new information that has come on the roofs. I don't know, Daryl, if you, or Wayne, I know there was updated roof information, if the board wanted to hear that as a part of the what's the current condition.
Yes, good evening, Chairwoman Jones, board members, Dr. Emery. So the current roof age on one building, which is around the gym on the classrooms, is 25 years old, and the other remaining roofs on the building are 18 years old.
And what lifespan do you expect on our roofs?
20 years on the roofs that are 18 years old. We are currently maintaining those roofs. We have the manufacturers that's working with us on any material that we need and supporting us. We would do an assessment on the whole facility to see if there's anything that we could do to extend that longevity, to make sure the flashings was correct, any type of boots around any penetrations within the roof. And the 25-year-old roof would be my suggestion that I think it would come back that they would probably say we need to replace that.
So I'm trying to put a kind of flow together of where we are. So if we have this loaded now, we have, that's the second slide that we have in our slide presentation, board members. So folks, you're seeing what we're looking at. So we're looking at the request for us tonight, and that request is for this budget, which is a total of a little over $1.5 million for the whole thing. So that's a little over 1.38 for the replacement of the HVAC units, and
Yes,
that would
ma'am.
replace all units in the building?
That would replace all the units in the main building, which is considered to be the 100 building.
Okay.
It would add dehumidification to the 200 building, and it would add dehumidification to the classrooms around the gym building.
And is that consistent with the recommendations from the findings from Mid-Atlantic?
Yes, the gym building and the 200 building currently have outside air. They have no dehumidification.
And on those particular units, did we find the same source of the mold or the leaking within the units, or are those units
No, ma'am.
fine?
No, ma'am, not in the report.
Okay.
It was
So we're
just the main building,
Just
yes.
the main building?
Yes, ma'am.
And we would do that with the individual?
We would put in dehumidification units
Right.
strictly that would aid those remaining units
Okay.
and not replace those units in those two parts of the building.
Okay.
The main building would receive units within the classrooms. It would also receive a new unit that would serve the media center, office, and guidance area.
Okay. Elizabeth, did you have a question, Ms. Monsinger?
Oh, I was wondering about the roof. You were talking about a roof, the 25-year-old section, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're also saying that that probably needs replacing, is that correct?
I think based on the age, I would say that they would come back with a recommendation to either do a major repair on that or replace that section.
Okay.
And that's why we had budgeted that amount of money.
And
All right, so does this amount of money?
I mean, I'm speculating on what they're going to find. We've not got that survey.
So if you go to the front, for the first page, you'll see the budget for the HVAC system is about 1.3 million.
Right.
That's funded from the mobile and modular account. And then we have a budget for the roof repairs. The roof has not been assessed yet, I think, on the timeline, or has it? I mean,
No, ma'am,
we don't have.
it
so-
hasn't. We was,
So that number.
Right, so we're,
Replace the roof, it would do repairs, is that correct?
yes, ma'am, it would do repairs and could possibly replace what's around the gym building
if needed,
if
right?
needed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so you'll see where that's in there, so a total request of the 1.5.
Covers the roof
And it has that in it,
and
yes.
the units.
And so we're trying to do this all in
At
one
one
motion
time
so
over the
that,
summer.
so that they don't have to keep coming back to us according to our policy if we can give them this budget amount.
That would be
For
correct.
staff not to have to keep kind of
Right.
coming back.
Okay.
And what about we've got a roof that's 18 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're saying maybe the duration of that roof is 2 more years. You said 20?
Yes, ma'am. When
I
they come and do
believe
the
you
roof
said
study, they would give us what needed to be done to the roof in order to extend the life on the roof from anywhere from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 8 to 10, and we would look at that assessment. But until we see that, we don't know.
Okay. So another question that I have, hearing Mr. Harvey speak, are we looking at approximately, and I'm not sure about this, but I did hear you come out with 2027 for a new school. Am I correct on that? And where exactly is that 2027 coming from?
Yeah, I think the comment was that the potential, if it wasn't in this bond, would be the next bond, which was projected to be 2024.
Yes.
And if 2024, it might take a couple years time to start the job, to finish so that kind of matches with the timeline. But it would be a 24 bond at this point, unless something else changes.
Okay, thank you.
And something important, we did put in the design for Ashley into this bond as a commitment that the next bond Ashley's at the front of the line. And that's important to say.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Can I ask a roof question? So historically, is 20 years what we do for a roof?
Yeah, I think, warranties vary. Most of these buildings of that age had 20, 25-year-old kind of warranties on roofs.
And that's historically been our process, right?
For
Or
the most
that's our
part, yes,
timeline?
ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
So if we can move to the next slide, and what are we looking at here with the 2 units that we're seeing?
Madam Chair, are you talking
Madam
about
Chair,
the-
give me just
the
1 minute, please, because I didn't
pictures
pull
or-
those pictures up.
Yeah, I was hoping we could see that.
Absolutely.
Show the
That the
pictures.
public could see exactly what we're looking at, so they would see what the units look like. We could talk about that. Let's walk through this together.
Kevin, is there no way we can hook an iPad into this system and just play off of what we have in front of us?
I'm pulling up the Power School Learning site right now so
Okay.
that I can have the whole agenda, so I'll be able to have exactly what you have. I should have done that in the first place. I apologize.
Hey, Daryl, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. These units will be replaced before faculty, staff, and students come back, right?
Yeah, the game plan on the timeline is to try to be finished around the 12th of August, sort of getting pushed in that window. The thing we need to also understand is what capacity is out there so that we make sure we have enough units. Once we decide to move forward, we need to make sure we got enough to get them all done over summer. Hopefully we will, but the plan right now on the timeline is to try to be done around August 12th.
Okay, and let's do everything we possibly can to make that happen, because I would not want the faculty and the staff and the kids to have to go back, into Ashley without all of these units being replaced. So if we can just firm that up.
The big part right now is if you move in that direction, is to get through the engineering process and then make sure there's enough inventory out there to handle our need. Because there may be some 4 or 5 week order time, I would think, on some of these units. So
can you kind of walk us through what we're looking at, why we're choosing this unit, what this does?
yeah,
You're talking
Wayne, you
to
talk
our
a bit more about specifics.
stakeholders here.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in the warranty on
Yes, ma'am. So excuse me, the units you're looking at now are a wall hung, referred to sometimes as a barred unit or a sun unit, so I won't stay with a specific name brand. The units have the ability to pull in outside air. The units, I believe, that we are planning for Ashley will be between 2 and 3 ton units. There is, let's see if I can scroll through this. There's some pictures of some other units here that I also want to show. These units would be have dehumidification in them. They would be a hot gas reheat with 10 kW electric heat for winter use, just like a heat pump within a house, and have the ability to control the environment to whatever the set points we would like, which would be somewhere around that 50% humidity, and then our normal set points for the district of 74 or 70 degrees, depending on whether we're in cooling and heating, and they would be able to automatically switch over, so no one would have to go out and do that on the days that we have cool mornings and warm afternoons.
So this unit, so we're looking at one of these units in each classroom.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. So this is a pretty good representation of Ashley as it relates to the window and the walls that's located on each side of the window. That this unit would go directly into that classroom and serve only that classroom. Yes. And I think there's another picture here of same style units. And again, we would be able to meet the needs of the dehumidification and address the moisture issues that Mr. Service talked about in his report.
What's the duration of the time on installing these units?
Right now, based on the information I've gotten, we have about a 5-week lead time on these units currently as the way it stands. Provided the board approves tonight, we will move vigorously with the engineer. We are looking at different options. We are talking with different manufacturers to see if there is an option of pre-purchasing units to go ahead and be able to get those units within a manufacturing slot so that we can get them here and meet the time frame. The only other thing that's in question is the switch gear. We are going to a 208 single phase unit, and so we will be looking at putting in approximately right now 3 400 amp breakers within the current panels, the main switchgear panels within the mechanical room, and we may have to look if we can get that specification prior to, because we have the public bid portion and all of that, we may go ahead and purchase those and have those ordered and provide those to the contractors. That is probably one of the largest concerns at this point in time, would be the switchgear. But right now, every indication that I'm getting is it should not be a problem to have the classrooms done prior to students coming back to school. That's every indication I'm getting at this moment. And I believe that was the last picture.
Thank you. So I believe, Dr. Emery, I don't know if did you finish addressing all the questions and answers?
I think we did. We got through, and your questions helped us get through. There was a lot of feedback to this board as well as to staff on preventive maintenance and where do we go from here. And one of the requests from the staff that happened last Tuesday in between our meetings was request to change their facility manager. And so when we went out on Wednesday, Mr. Laughlin announced that that change had been made and who their manager was. I have to say a little plug for their cleaning staff. When folks were talking about changes, somebody said, "You're not changing our cleaning folks." And so it was good to hear they were very happy with the folks who were cleaning their building. And you also saw then the timeline that we're proposing for the new facility manager to meet with the team, if this action happens tonight, for us to project out and come back on June 12th with a plan that you can see, that we can share with the community for, what does maintenance look like? Once we take this action and we make this investment, then how does that get maintained going forward?
So I think I think the next thing that I have, I know we have lots of documents loaded, and I'm trying to figure out where there was one maybe that had work orders, and so we had some dates.
Yes.
So can we put out what those, can we see that, and can we put out what those timelines are so that,
Yes.
where's the next step? When would the roofs be, yes, that one, when the roofs would be assessed, and then we'll know about that, so kind of paint the picture moving through this process. And when we will come back and have additional conversations. What did I?
So Dana, this is the document you're asking about, yes?
Actions, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you,
Mhm.
yes. Thank you.
And you're most interested in the actions going forward, correct?
That's correct. So we
Okay.
just, what does that look like? Because I believe that when we met with a working group from the school, and we talked at the last building and grounds meeting, and we also heard feedback of, keep us timelines. And I want to make sure that we put out there what those target times are, and we list that out.
Would you like me to run through those?
If you don't mind.
So currently, provided that the board approves our actions tonight, we would move on with the design firm. Go ahead and contract for a roof study to be provided by a third party. We're looking to complete the designs between the 15th and the 18th. We would also recommend that we go ahead and put out on our website, pending board action tonight, to allow folks to know that this bid will be coming, so that we're out there more than just the 7 to 8 days that state law requires. We would meet again with the Astley work group on the 15th. Our goal is to go for public advertisements for bids between the 16th and the 21st. We would receive an open bids between the 24th and the 1st of June. Contract would be approved through legal, get the appropriate sign-offs, and then we would start the actual replacement and the work of the unit on 6/15. Granted, we would, provided that low bid looked acceptable to staff, we would probably recommend to go ahead and give that contractor a letter of intent so they can move forward with ordering equipment. As we've talked about lead times and the importance of lead times as the contract is going through legal. We're projecting now to have the roof survey back so that we would be able to go ahead and start any roof repairs that would be needed or found by the survey group. And that work may start sooner, depending again on the survey results, and if there's things that we can get in and do and not hinder the actual instructional environment, or if we need to do some things on the weekends or at night. So I think we have a list of the actions to be taken after 8/12, after the units are installed. We would go back and look at the actual equipment that was installed. We would look at manufacturers' recommendations on PMs. Every manufacturer, depending on the equipment, gives a recommended PM and maintenance schedule that should be performed on that equipment. So we would need to see what equipment was actually installed as it relates to the office, media center, and other units. Those make a change. There could be a gas pack, or they could be, some other type of equipment. We really don't know what the designer is going to put in those locations. So until we see that, we wouldn't know what just to build the PM schedule around. We could go ahead and start building a PM schedule around the units that are going into the classroom, and then just modify that based on what particular brand that we ended up getting within the bid, if they had something different within their recommendations on their scheduled PM program. The plan is to be completely finished with the Astley project by October 31st. And the reason we put that is we have punch list items. If we are able to get the classroom units done, but we're not successful in getting the units replaced on the office or the media center, we would allow them to work on weekends and complete that project and still leave the current chiller running and then go back and pull the chiller out of service once those units was brought online. And we would anticipate that to happen over a weekend where everything's set, and then just basically do a switch over. So we wanted to make sure we had ample time to do that and go back through punch list and make sure we got items closed out the way we needed to. And then 8/17, we would go ahead and start rescheduling back with the work group and have follow-up meetings, make sure that we have accomplished what we need to accomplish as a district, and that Ashley is, we're successful in putting Ashley where we think it needs to be as it relates to the environment, and being successful with the plan that we've had and get feedback from that group.
So are the work groups, I see scheduled meetings with work group for 2018-19. We're still planning on having some sessions with the Ashley staff to just talk through this process. And also I think we heard concern about just overall maintenance and upkeep of the building. And so I'm hoping we would have some input at the beginning of the year and some check-ins as well, so that they feel like they are hearing and involved in concerns that
yes,
they may
ma'am.
have.
It would be our plans and goals to start that work group back up once school got in and got settled down. So we would hope somewhere towards the end of August, if not the 1st of September, and we would still meet, in my mind, twice a month until we knew that everything was taken care of and to satisfaction of the Ashley work group and staff.
Madam Chair, I think that's really what they want too. I mean, I think they want to feel like they have some involvement in what that should look like, and sort of help us figure out when we get to a point that it's okay to say, the work is complete. And we committed to them last Wednesday that we were perfectly fine, that if that helps us build the trust going forward, that was very much our plan. So part of that, how do we schedule it, is accountability in this whole process too.
Yeah, I'd like to say too that really proud of the staff, because they've really stepped up and started noticing things that they put in work orders where in the past that necessarily hasn't been the case. So the staff has really stepped up and assisted us in looking for things that we can react to and take care of in a timely fashion. So I want to make sure that they get credit for the good work they've done as well.
Smart singer.
I also really want to make sure that Wayne and Daryl get enormous credit for lots of extra hours and lots of effort in trying to come up with a good, timely solution that makes sure that they care for the people in the building and that you look out for the very limited financial resources of the district, and that I think you've done an extraordinary job, and I just want to thank you so much.
I actually just have a comment. Just looking at the action that we're supposed to take tonight, I'm for approving the replacement of the HVAC system and other related repairs, because I understand the importance of having something done immediately in the short term. But we also have to understand Ashley is a really old school. And to hear that the possibility of a new school is 2024 really, really bothers me. That does not sit well with me. It just really doesn't. And it comes a time where we're going to have to sit down and we're going to have a real discussion about going ahead and building a new school or relocating Ashley. I mean,
Well, let's
that's
talk about that process. So we were the board that approved the bond projects.
And I was the one
And
that
we
did
knew-
not agree with what we had on there for Ashley.
And we knew that we had the design phase
We
in
did.
this. So if we talk about that, and we talk about wanting to fast track or move things, if I'm correct, that any changes to projects that were presented in the order that we presented were presented to the county commissioners. And so it is not in the in this body to change that
Right.
order of the bond.
That was correct. We'd have to go back to the commissioners and make that request, formal request.
Well, go ahead, you have something to say?
So one of the concerns that's happened when we've been looking at projects is that we're not saving money, we're actually spending more than we bargained for. So if there were any savings in the bond, then there's not a person sitting here who doesn't wish that they had $15 or $20 million.
Absolutely.
But what we don't have is the capacity to pull it out from somewhere. When we put forward a bond proposal
To the
and
county
ask
commissioners,
people, not just to the commissioners, but to the public who voted on that, we made a list and a promise of what we would be doing.
Absolutely, but these same people that voted for the bond, they're part of this community.
I'm
and their
not
children
saying
are
they're
also
not part
go
of
to
the
Ashley.
community. What I'm saying is that our work is costing more than we budgeted for,
Okay.
not less. We're not having bond savings.
That's
We're having
fine.
trouble
That's
with,
fine.
so,
But that has nothing to do with having the conversation of the new school.
so my concern is that we don't have 15 or 20 million dollars to make that decision with. We don't we don't have that sitting to make that decision. And we did take a bond package that we spent a lot of time on.
And we did.
And one of the biggest, and the reason for putting the design of Ashley in there was to make clear commitment that that is the
We had
very.
that conversation because
Right.
I wanted the building in there, and we agreed to just have the designs.
Right, and
Well, you all agreed to just have the designs.
so where we are now is we don't have the capacity to just put in a new building at this point in our bond package.
Well, I said my piece, and I'm going to continue to say my piece, that I believe Ashley deserves a new school, and I will continue to go and say what I have to say. If I need to speak to county commissioners myself to see what they think on it, I'm fine with doing that as well.
Okay, and if you can
I mean,
get the county commissioners to come up with the money to build a
well,
new
it's just
school.
a discussion. It's one thing you can at least discuss it. If you're not bringing it to their attention that is an idea or something that you're looking to do, then no, they will not think about doing it. How do we know if we have not asked or approached in that manner?
Well, I think that I know that we have had some good discussions about what a new location would look like, and a lot of other great things would be. So I hear you, Ms. Taylor, for keeping those discussions out there and open, and I appreciate, Ms. Motsinger, you talking about our constraints with the dollars, and also that our bond is going over. So
One other thing I'd like to talk about deserve is that as a school district, we are making do without enough resources. Operations would love to put on new roofs on every roof that the warranty wore out, and we can't. The frustration that I have felt in the 12 years about trying to make do without nearly enough. We don't have enough resources to give every child what they deserve. What every kid deserves is the very best schools and the very best teachers and the very best resources. And I would do anything to make that all possible. And I think that part of what's so painful about the language of who deserves is that, of course, these children deserve the very best. And I don't think there's anybody sitting here who doesn't want better for our kids than I don't know anybody in the district who isn't working really hard
Absolutely.
to get the best
I
for their
agree with
children,
you.
and that's why that language hurts, is because I think these men,
Oh, they've done an awesome job. Absolutely.
and they know what kids deserve, and they're doing everything to make it possible. The people who sit back here
Absolutely.
at every board meeting know what our children deserve, and they work tirelessly trying to make that come true.
Right.
And that's why that language troubles me so deeply. It's not a matter of deserving or not.
And I agree with that. And you're right. We can't give everybody what they deserve. But what I'm asking you is giving them what they need. They need another location. They need another school. I understand the deserve and the need. There's a need here. But I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
I
Mr. Secretary.
was sincerely troubled that over the discussion of this, that we would go down this rabbit hole. And so here we go. The community and staff came to us with a concern about the conditions at Astley. And I don't believe that there was any member of this board that for 1 minute felt like we would not address those concerns. Now those concerns about conditions at Astley have progressed to the replacement of Astley as a school, replacing that school. One of the most difficult things that I have to deal with as a school board member is balancing out public perception with what the facts truly are. And I think it's important for the public to realize as we go down this rabbit hole that there were extensive discussions about Astley. There were extensive discussions about Haynes-Lawrence. There were extensive discussions about Conoke. I don't believe that there's a member on this board at this point in time who does not view all of our students through the same lens. And we want the same thing for all of our students. The goal is to try to accomplish that, as Ms. Motzinger said, with the limited resources that we have, and also in such a manner as the taxpayers of Forsyth County can bear, because it's the taxpayers of Forsyth County who are gracious enough through their taxes to provide us with a local budget. What I would ask is similar to what I asked in committee meetings last week, is that the community would recognize our desire to immediately address the environmental issues at Astley, to correct those and ensure that our students are in a much healthier environment than what they are in now. And in that trust, I would pray that the community would also bear with us and forbear with us as we move forward in the discussion about replacing Astley and possibly finding a way to be able to do that. And I just appreciate the participation of the community, and I appreciate this particular board. I just don't want this evening to close would there be any perception that Astley is only now coming onto our radar. We have had many conversations about Astley. We'll continue to have conversations about Astley. And we just ask that you would continue to bear with us and have some faith in us and keep us as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Do we have any other comments? Okay.
The only comment I have is, of course, everybody would like to have a new school for Astley, and we would like to have it now. But in the meantime, we've got to do what's safe for our kids and for our teachers at present. And I feel like what's safe for our kids is to go ahead and get this done. We don't have a choice. And to get it done before our kids start back to school, our teachers start back to school, and to find out as soon as we can when we can get this going, which you're doing, and I appreciate that greatly. But it's something that's got to happen, and it's something that's got to happen quickly. If we were to go in to build a new school right now, you know and I know, it takes, no matter how much money you got, it takes a long, long time to get that done. So our process right now, I think, is to immediately move ahead with this as quickly as we can, and get it done and get it done right.
Thank you, Ms. Calvert-Hayes. Do we have other questions for Wayne or Daryl at this time, or Dr. Emery?
One point in my notes, I want to make sure, because I think it also speaks to some of the responsibility here of the action you're being asked to approve tonight, is that these units can in fact be moved. So when we get to a new Ashley, this investment can, these, not that they would go to a new building, please, let's don't put that out there, but they can go to modular classrooms, they could go to other places that might have similar systems where you might have need a replacement. So there is value, whatever this timeline is, there is value in this investment you're making because it has life beyond what we hope will be, a new Ashley.
So when, I think I have one last question for myself. When would we, as a board, whether it's at our a B&G committee meeting, when would we kind of have a check-in on the progress? What is that?
I was proposing June 12th, only because that's really 2 board meetings from now. So a lot of this action, given the green light tonight, we should have a much better view, I think. If the board would like an update on the 22nd, we're happy to do that, but
the 12th.
I had just put the 12th out there as it's 2 board meetings away. Doesn't seem possible, but it's 2 board meetings away.
Okay, thank you. Board members, other questions, comments? Thank you very much. So that concludes our discussion for the Ashley Solutions, Ashley Academy. Now we will move on to the budget and have some discussion around the 2018-19 budget request.
Good evening, Chairperson Jones, board members, and Dr. Emery. I'm here for our preliminary budget resolution for 2018-19. This includes all estimated funds except for federal. We don't have those and will not have those for quite a while. One of the things I want to point out is at our last meeting, we were showing a $16,600 deficit in balancing the budget. We have since balanced that. We were able to take that out of some technology materials that we can apply to state textbooks.
Kim, so I think so that we're all looking at the same document, maybe Alex will pull that up. I believe the most updated document is not embedded in our board book, but it's actually loaded on PowerSchool. So the one that's embedded in our board book, I believe, shows fund balance appropriated, and so we now have one that does not have that, and that would be the board revised, budget revised, dated 5/1/2018.
Yep, this is the version right here, and this is the second page, and we'll make it bigger.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So of course, at our last meeting, we're showing a deficit of the $16,600. As you can tell now, our net balance is 0. We also, even though it is not included in our potential budget, we are showing on that sheet a potential salary increase of 2%. The state has not released what they're going to do yet, so therefore we can't project any numbers at this time.
So Kim, if the state, just so we know, this is just the local implement.
Correct. If the state was to implement a 2%, that is our local match that we would have to do, 2%.
That's code, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
On our budget resolution summary, our instructional services is about $378,500,000, which is approximately 77% of our local and state budget. So I know that some people had asked for the percentages on that, so I wanted that to be released. Our total expenditures are $493,889,640, and our total revenues are the same. So our net budget is 0, and we are not using any fund balance to budget. Our actual budget resolution definitely goes more in depth. That's why I provided the summary sheet. I think it's a little easier to understand. I will scroll through this, and if anyone has any questions, I will be glad to answer them. We have also color-coded everything. So if instructional services you will see is in red, system-wide support is in blue, and it follows all the way through.
While she's doing that, part of the reason for color coding, because we had good feedback from you folks, was the resolution requires us to blend both local and state funds. And because we have no state budget, it's the typical dilemma, which is you're sort of making a guess about what that will look like until the state legislature convenes on May 16th. And that's also why this is preliminary, because generally whatever we have to do will have some revisions based on what the state does. But the statute requires us to put all of these funds in the resolution that you adopt. So in an effort to help it make sense, why do we have instruction in one place and then we have instruction in another place? One of those local, the other being state. And so the color coding was just an idea to try to help it make sense as you work through the document.
And also, I would like to say within this budget, there has been some talk of reallocation of some elementary and middle school funds for TS and TF coordinators. Within this budget, you do not have to take action on that tonight. There was no new funds involved, or it was just reallocation of existing funds. So we do not have to have approval or action on that item tonight. So does anyone have any questions on the budget? We also included a sheet with our 2018-19 budget priorities that was given to us by the board. I know one of the top items on that was supplements for teachers. We are still having small groups. I actually sent out an email today requesting another meeting on that. We're still researching and trying to see if there is something we can do if any additional funds become available.
Can I ask one other question?
Yes.
About staff pay? What is a living wage in Forsyth County? Do we know what hourly wage? And the reason I'm asking is that we have teachers who, of course, deserve more than they are paid. We all agree on that. But my other concern are the people in our buildings who are some of the lower paid people, and my concern is that we really bring them up to a minimal living wage.
And I can research that information and send that out to you all in an email and give you what the livable wage is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Barr.
You know what, when it came to our priorities, when I looked at this, you know what, I think I was expecting just a little bit more, because I know the board, we got together, we talked about our priorities. And for example, if you go to the budget priorities, I guess when I look at closing the achievement gap, I don't really see anything that's different and new that we've done. And I guess in my mind, what I wanted to see is close the achievement gap, see something that's different that we have not done, and somehow see a price that's connected to it. You know, for example, provide tutoring services. I know that we've already done that, or we're doing that. Employ parent involvement coordinators and parent engagement coordinators. We've been doing that for a while, but yet we still have the same achievement gap situation that we've been looking at for years. So in my mind, looking at the priorities that we talked about, I would have thought that some group would have gotten together and said, hey, and I'm a whiteboard person, I love the whiteboard brainstorming, which I think this group knows, closing the achievement gap. What is it that we have done for years that's not working? What is it that we need to do now that we think will work and have merit? So we have that list, and somebody goes out and research it and says, here are the dollars that can go with that particular item. I know we also had a great retreat with the parent coordinators. So they gave a lot of good ideas, a lot of good discussion. And I think what I came away from that was, let's do something different. And I think everybody knows I'm one of the upper bound, inner city kids. And I talked about how that Upper Bound program really helped kids like myself and other people. So I guess I was thinking about, okay, we have a parent coordinator program that's working, but how do we enhance it? How do we take this to another level? Because we think that's going to close the achievement gap. And I don't know if this program is working or not, but I've heard in Wake County they have what they call Parent University. Just something, just something different. Because if you do the same things over and over and over and over again, you're going to get the same results. So when I look at these budget priorities, the thing that went through my mind, I'm going to be honest, is were we heard? Because I know we started talking about this for a while, months ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So at this point, I just thought we would see it a little bit differently and with some different strategies. Because I'm just telling you what, when I look at this, I don't see anything, I don't see a lot of stuff that's different, so.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Ms. Clark?
So I'd like to comment on the board's #1 priority, which was increasing the local supplement for teachers with our local dollars. And we talked a little bit about this last time. And I just want to say, I know we've had some meetings. We have not netted what I was expecting. And as we look to approve this budget tonight, I don't believe I've seen any indication that we have found any sustainable fund for teacher pay, the local supplement increase that we have asked for over a year. I don't believe I've seen that anywhere, that there's any piece of sustainability if we were to look at raising that over a 5-year period, which would be a cost of $6 million.
Correct.
Estimated. I have not seen any identified piece of funding that we could begin to claim, and so that disappoints me greatly. I know that I see on this sheet that we're going to have meetings again in May and June, and
Correct.
That's good. I hope that we can really have some identified funding sources that we can begin to put towards this into what I'll just go ahead and call increasing our teacher local supplement pay fund, so that we can grab a hold of that. Because as I said, we as a board put that as our #1 priority, and I'm just sad that it's not there. And I also want to say on this budget priority sheet, I'd like to hear about the reading interventionist for early grades. I haven't heard any update on that lately. I'd like to see if there's any academic benefit that we are seeing that is tangible and that we can really say, yes, they are working. And that's in the early grades, which we've identified as the place for that to be. Also, I'd like to see a cost associated with this #3, where we talk about employee-parent involvement coordinators and parent engagement coordinators. What's the cost of that? I asked also for about 1.5 years ago a list of professional development things that we do as a district, and I have not received that. I would like a detailed list of that, and I haven't had that to this date. Also, the very last piece of that, on the second page, it says we will continue to evaluate evidence of impact of programs and initiatives that support Priority 2, which goes along with Robert's issue of how are we measuring the things that we say are going towards the achievement gap. And then some of those contracts that we've approved, I'll just mention one, Heart to Heart. I know we've had success with it in one place and not so much in the other. How are we measuring the success of those contracts that we have approved?
Yes, Mr. Barr?
And I'll be honest, when I look at this, and I think, as a board, we said that we have these particular priorities, and then we come to this point where we're supposed to give thumbs up or thumbs down for a preliminary budget, and hopefully we're safe because it says preliminary. This does give me just some pause, because when I look at a budget and I look at our priorities, in my mind, I am thinking that this is going to help our students advance. Now, I know that we're doing a lot of work, spending a lot of money, but I would just like to be able to take a summary sheet with our priorities that we met about and talked about and said, hey, Mr. Barr or school board, this is the way that we are addressing this. Because I don't want to come to the end of the year or September and we look at different scores and we say, oh, here we go, we've got the same type of results. So.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. I believe Ms. Calvert-Hayes wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'm real concerned about our third grade reading and why our third grade reading continually remains the same. And when I look at this, I want to know, what are we doing differently to get off this flat level? And I'm not seeing a whole lot on that. So that's a big concern to me also.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Clark?
Yeah. Let me say, and then I'll let you go. So on the local supplement, two more things. The reason we're doing that, in case there may be people watching that don't know, I believe, and I think this board believes, that teachers, every profession begins with a teacher. And we as a society, I think, need to uplift and value teachers much more than we do. And that is one way that we can do that, is with our local money, increasing our local teacher pay. It used to be that Forsyth County was a draw for teachers because they knew that the supplement was attractive. We once were in the top 10. I'd like, to think that we can move towards being there again instead of ranked 21st, and that's the goal in this whole thing, is to value teachers, because if we don't value them, then society and the community will not as well. And then I was talking with a teacher, a former teacher, and I'd like to make sure that we put in our priorities and really look at what the cost would be of increasing our mentor teachers as part of that teacher academy, because she believes, and she's a former teacher of 35 years, and I've heard this from different teachers across the district, that mentor teachers, especially for young teachers, and in the world of classroom discipline, which is where young teachers coming into the profession don't get that in their training and education today. They don't get a whole lot of classroom discipline and management training. She believes that mentor teachers, that was what helped her the most when she was starting out. And what teachers today say to us is very valuable, is to have someone as a mentor assigned to come in to the classroom and evaluate them, and then that they can go and see. So I'd like for that to be just something that we really look at the cost of increasing that as part of our leadership opportunity in our teacher academy.
Mr. Johnson?
I just think it's about time for me to say something. Like the schools, this is the school system that I came up in, but when I got on this board, we were at 29,000 students. We are 54,000 now. And I remember the days in my upbringing that we knew just about everybody in our community. And everybody in the community knew you, and they would always ask you something about what you were learning in school. I just don't see that anymore. I don't even think some of our people don't even know the next door neighbors. And it's a void. I just look at some of these little kids, every once in a while, you have to come call one in and talk with him a little bit to see what he's doing. And I talked with one that was going to carve, and he thought a D was all right. I said, well, no, I don't know about this D, brother. You come by the house, you want a soda. I don't think I need to give you my soda for a D. You got to do a little better than this D work. But I think our schools are doing a lot of good things, but we just don't know the people in our neighborhoods. And we need to start pulling these kids in and talking with them about their education. You know, it was something that I had every day. What did you learn in school today, boy? That was Daddy. What did you learn, boy? And we had to tell him something every day. Every day we sat down to eat, we had to tell him something. And I'm going to tell you, he could remember. Old Joe, my next to me, would tell him something he learned 3 or 4 months ago, and he'd look at him. He said, boy, you still on that? Hey, you must be one of those dumb classes. So we got to start pulling our kids in and talking with them every day. I see a lot of kids getting off the bus, and I stop them from, I guess, some that live near me way out here at Northwest. I said, what in the world are you doing way over here now? I'm over here on Manchester and East Swanson. Why are you out here at Northwest? You know, and then one at Carver. It's all over the place. So we got to start doing a better job in our community and start learning these kids. I like Ashley, but I don't know all those kids that are going out to Ashley. And they come by my house every day. Every day. They're playing. I had one little boy. He talked about Spanish. I said, well, I can get you in to see him. The next thing I knew, he's moved out. He's gone. So we got to help the schools. We got to make sure we're talking with these kids every day we see them and put a premium on what they're learning and on premium what the schools are teaching. We're spending a lot of money. We spend a lot of money trying to help these kids, but we got to do a lot of talking with these kids. And you can't come up here and jump on us. You need to start in your neighborhood and jump on some of those people. Make sure those kids are learning some things. And that's all. I'm getting ready to get out of here. But I know that unless we go back to the community and start putting some pressure on our children, the school system's going to always have a difficult time. We got to make sure when they come to school, they learn something.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Taylor?
Maybe I overlooked it. One of the things that I wanted to see, I don't see anything on here about support staff or classified. I want to see a little more support because our teachers need that extra support in the classroom. And I believe that our school secretaries, our TAs, our guidance counselors, all of them are very important to our schools. So I want to see us look out for them as well as our teachers. And I believe that should be a priority to us as well.
Dr. Emery, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to say, we highly value your priorities, and we did not come into the budget season thinking we were going to have to find $1.3 million already to balance this. And so naively, I need to say, I felt with House Bill 90, and we knew we were going to have state monies come back into those 65 teaching positions you paid for this year. So, we talk about things we haven't done, but you as a board put over $3 million of local money this year into a budget to afford 65 additional K-3 positions for us to lower class size and meet that requirement. And so the blessing early was that our state legislature passed House Bill 90, and we have some funding for that. And so I just need you to hear, knowing that 33 positions are now going to be paid for by the state, which gives back about half of that. I also felt that with the way our revenues had been, the other half, we would probably be able to meet some of these, particularly supplements and these other priorities that you have made so clear. The fact that that's not manifested yet, and hopefully maybe our prognosis will look a little better as the quarters come in for the county, we found ourselves in this preliminary budget having to make cuts, and you know that, and it's been wobbly, and it hasn't felt good, and I know it doesn't give you a great sense of security coming into this, but not having ability to transfer some state funds, to leave those funds where they are, meant we had to look at where do we make those reductions so that we can balance between the state and the local budget. Hopefully, when we have a state budget, it will be a good one, and that, you know, I'm trying to be optimistic about that, where we might get some state relief might allow us to come back in the second round and address particularly the teacher supplement priority. So I just want to assure you, it's not that we aren't listening, but that, you know, there were challenges here that we didn't anticipate going into budget season.
Thank you, Dr. Emery. I appreciate, Dr. Emery, you bringing up some of the positives that we haven't brought up, that we have been able to address. And I feel like almost like Groundhog Day, that movie, where you just find yourself kind of going back in circles when it comes to budget time. And that is that this has been, every year it seems to be the most challenging part of serving on this board, and some of that is that the needs are so great, and we know that we have pockets. We have funding, but sometimes there's boundaries around that funding, and so it's that piece of it. But I think we find ourselves a lot of times right here with a preliminary budget or a final budget, and we say, we talked about this, and it just didn't happen. And I think that's, I don't know, as a board, and I'm saying this as a board member, I need to find out how I can better express my expectations if I'm not doing that clearly now to staff, because I think that sometimes for Ms. Clark talking about the teacher supplement piece to this, I understand that we did not find ourselves or think we would find ourselves with a deficit at this time and having to file 1.3, but the conversations around that started the moment that we raised our hands and passed the last budget. And so I think that some of that work, I hope moving forward, and I share that to say, I think moving forward, if we could hold ourselves internally accountable and put some dates out there that says we're going to have something for ourselves to look at for what does a flat supplement look like. So, I mean, some of that is, I think we all start to talk about these things at certain times of the year, and then it slips our minds, it slips other people's minds, and then we find out as we kind of start back into this circle that we are hurrying to try to look at things. And the other piece that I would have to say about that is just I was really taken back on Friday when I opened up, because I know it's important for feedback, and when I opened up the budget document and I saw like 2.37 of fund balance to balance the budget, and I thought, where did that come from? Because we have said we're not going to use fund balance, and it wasn't on any documents that we had seen. Now, the very first document that we saw over here in the wording, it says 1.9 million, and then it says fund balance, and then it says activity, and then I think it's for bus, but that's cut off. But then the number shows 67,000 replacement of high mileage vehicles. I guess we had, those are things that I just wonder sometimes how we miss the mark of how that just didn't come up. And when we have conversations that we're all together in a committee meeting where I think it was I was given the answer that I think staff thought that you all wanted to do a second round of replacements. And so I thought, well, did I miss something? So I said, Alex, would you please pull the minutes from the special called meeting? And I looked through it, and the motion was made to buy 22 activity buses. And to Ms. Motzinger's delight, we got 25 because that's what she was holding out for anyway. But we talked about the discussion is good, and I threw out some plans in this minute of phases. But my colleague said, we don't want to leave another board member. I'm not getting into all this. I guess I could talk forever. I think I'm just frustrated that we get here, and on a Friday we saw revenue from our in-pay invoice system that the board hasn't earmarked where we might want to be able to put that, but we did say in the finance committee meeting, I think, hey, Lori, maybe that's not going to help with the supplement totally, but what if we started maybe we had some discussion about what if we started putting that money there? We didn't finalize it, but then for that to go into different directions. Anyway, I'm frustrated, and I'm trying to, I want us to really try to think about moving forward, even from the preliminary budget stages to where we end up, how we can improve this process over the next month or two to just try to help make sure that we're really on the same page. It's disheartening.
So I just, again, would like to remind people that part of the reason there's not $6 million allocated for teacher supplements, which everybody would like, is that we don't have $6 million more coming in.
That's right.
To meet those. And that the way Wake County gets such high supplements is twofold. Number one, it's a much wealthier county than Forsyth County. At this point, almost 60% of our children are on free and reduced lunch. There is a lot of wealth in this county, but it sure isn't distributed across the board. The way Wake County pays high supplements is they also pay high property taxes. And in that community, that's a price their citizens are asked to pay, and they do pay. And I really, when it comes down to it, I believe in the years that you have been on the board and the years that I have been on the board, I have never experienced a staff that had different aspirations or desires than the board members did. I've never seen staff members who are loose with taxpayer money, who don't care about how we spend money. This has always been a really fiscally responsible and careful school system. And I think that a lot of the frustration is that we're trying to make do without the resources that we want. And I just don't believe that people are ignoring requests from this board. I don't believe that that's the case. And I guess we may have a difference on that.
Right. But thank you, Ms. Monsignor, for your comments. Do we have questions of Kim? Thank you, Kim. I know. So next we have some discussion around pre-kindergarten construction. Colin Moore, I believe.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to hopefully keep this pretty short, but what we're asking for in your packet, and I don't know if, Alex, if you've got something they need to pull up, but we're basically asking for the board to approve staff to request funding from the county commissioners for the pre-K projects. We're not asking you to approve the contracts, but what we've gotten into in the past is you'll approve the contracts, and then we'll request the information from the county commissioners, and that's about a 60 to 80-day process, and we need to move forward with our contracts once we execute them. Yes. So we're basically asking if we can receive the funding for the pre-K projects.
And this is the one that's in the book. The link is the revised amount.
Yes, we have previously asked for $300,000, so we're asking for that we can go ahead and ask for the remaining amount for the pre-K budgets.
Questions of Colin at this time? No?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our discussion items for this evening, and we move into action items. First, board members, we have consider approval to replace, modify the HVAC units and other building-related repairs at Astley Academy.
Second.
So I have a motion by Ms. Calvert-Hayes and a second by Ms. Motzinger. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, consider approval for the design of Ashley Academy mechanical system. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Singletary, do I have a second? Second, Ms. Clark. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Next, consider approval of the 2018-19 preliminary budget resolution.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve, Ms. Motzinger. Do I have a second? Mr. Johnson, do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, who's in favor? Okay, everybody. Anybody opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, consider approval.
Consider approval of funds requested from Forsyth County for pre-K construction. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Calvert-Hayes, do I have a second? Ms. Motzinger? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. That concludes our action items for this evening. We do have members of the community signed up to speak on non-agenda items. We'll get the timer up and then you can come right up to the podium. Ms. Highsmith.
Thank you for joining us on Your School Channel, Cable 2.